The moment my life shattered wasn't quiet, it exploded like a bomb in a crowded room. I stood frozen, gripping the single white rose I'd brought for my wife, Emily. My heart hammered violently against my ribs as I stared at the man across from her at our anniversary dinner table. This wasn't a friend or relative, I'd never seen him before. Yet there he was, bold, arrogant, sipping wine casually while my wife smiled like she'd won some kind of sick game. "Oh, Brandon, I'm so glad you're here," Emily said smoothly, her voice dripping poison disguised as sweetness. "This is Ryan, my new partner. I thought our anniversary was the perfect moment for you two to meet." Everything inside me clenched, my jaw, my fists, even my lungs tightened until breathing felt impossible. Partner? What kind of cruel joke was this? But Emily's eyes held no humor, no kindness. They sparkled with icy triumph, her lips twisted into a smile I'd never seen before, as cold and sharp as a knife blade. I forced my gaze onto Ryan, hoping, praying to see discomfort, guilt, something. But there was nothing. He returned my stare confidently, smugly. His expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, and wristwatch gleaming in the soft restaurant lights screamed arrogance. It made me sick. Sick with humiliation, anger, disbelief. "So, you've replaced me?" The words fell from my mouth without my permission, rough-edged and brittle. "Oh, don't be dramatic," Emily mocked, rolling her eyes and leaning toward Ryan. "It's not replacement, Brandon. It's an upgrade." She giggled, actually giggled, as though shattering 13 years of marriage was some clever punchline. My pulse thumped wildly in my ears, anger heating my face. Every moment we'd ever shared flashed violently through my mind, birthdays, vacations, sleepless nights spent promising each other we'd always have one another's backs. Was it all a lie? My pride, my heart, everything I'd built my life around, crumbled in a single cruel laugh from Emily. But something fierce rose inside me, pride, stubbornness, or maybe just sheer desperation. I refused to give them the satisfaction of breaking me right there. Instead, I placed the rose gently down, petals trembling. "Charming," I said flatly, my voice like steel. Ryan's cocky grin faltered slightly, uncertainty flickering behind his eyes. "You're not angry?" Emily prodded, clearly annoyed by my composure. She wanted a scene, wanted me humiliated and weak. I wouldn't grant her that. "Why should I be angry, Emily?" I said quietly, my voice dangerously calm. "You've just given me clarity." Without another word, I reached for my wallet, tossed my credit card onto the pristine white tablecloth, and motioned for the waiter. "I'll pay my half. Seems fair, right?" Her face darkened slightly, irritation flaring. She hadn't expected composure, she wanted chaos. But I was done dancing to her tune. I rose slowly, buttoned my jacket, and looked Emily directly in the eyes. "Enjoy your dinner. Happy anniversary." Then I turned and walked away, heart pounding with adrenaline, fury, and deep, cutting sorrow. Every step away from her felt heavier, but also strangely freeing. Outside, the chilly night air burned my lungs, but clarity flooded my senses. By dawn, I'd made irreversible decisions. I blocked her number, filed for divorce, and prepared myself for war. But the worst was yet to come. I'd underestimated just how far Emily would go to win, to hurt, and to destroy. If I'd known then what I'd soon learn, the depth of her deception, the web of lies she'd spun, I might have run far sooner. But betrayal never announces itself politely, it kicks down your door, shatters your trust, and dares you to fight back. I was ready to fight. And Emily? She was ready to ruin me. The night after that disaster of an anniversary, I couldn't sleep. My mind ran wild, replaying Emily's smug face and Ryan's arrogant smirk in an endless loop. The pain should have crippled me, but every time I closed my eyes, anger chased the grief away. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was humiliated. Betrayed. I'd been played for a fool, and the realization made me burn inside with a need for answers, for justice, for something that would make sense of the nightmare. By sunrise, I made my first move. I canceled every joint credit card, froze our bank accounts, and called my buddy, Marcus, a lawyer who'd seen his fair share of ugly divorces. He picked up on the first ring. "Brandon? You sound like hell. What happened?" I told him everything in the bluntest terms. He listened in silence, only interrupting to ask questions that made me realize just how little I really knew about my own wife. "You ever see her texting more? Locking her phone? Hiding stuff?" Marcus asked. That's when the dots started to connect. Emily's sudden work trips, her phone always flipped screen down, those secretive smiles at odd messages, things I'd dismissed as stress or coincidence now looked like giant, blinking red flags. God, how had I been so naive? Marcus didn't sugarcoat it. "She's prepping her exit, Brandon. You need to get ahead. Copy every financial document. Back up your emails. Change your passwords. Now." Fueled by equal parts rage and panic, I did exactly that. I tore through file cabinets, dug up statements, insurance forms, even found her spare phone, one she'd kept stashed in the back of her closet. I booted it up, hands shaking, heart in my throat. There were hundreds of messages between Emily and Ryan. Filthy, cruel, mocking. They laughed about me, planned trips, joked about my boring routines. The worst part wasn't the cheating itself, it was the way she described me: weak, predictable, useless. The woman I'd once loved was gone, replaced by a stranger who saw me as nothing more than a doormat. The shock boiled over into something primal. I wanted revenge, but not the kind you see in movies. I wanted her to feel powerless, just like she'd made me feel. No tears, no begging. Just cold, deliberate consequences. That morning, I sent Emily a single message: dinner was eye-opening. We'll handle the rest through lawyers. No response. Not a word. Instead, within hours, she started calling and texting non-stop. Suddenly, I was worth her attention, now that she realized her cushy lifestyle was at risk. But I ignored every call. Every message was the same: let's be adults, this doesn't have to get ugly, think about our reputation. Now she cared about appearances? Hilarious. By the second day, Emily was pounding on my door, demanding I talk like a man, instead of hiding behind silence. I opened the door and looked her dead in the eye. She was all fake tears and trembling lips, but underneath the act, I could see the calculation. She wanted control back. "Brandon, can't we just discuss this?" she pleaded, her tone sugary and rehearsed. "There's nothing to discuss, Emily," I said, my voice flat. "You made your choice. Now you live with it." She snapped then, the real Emily flashing through her mask. "You think you can just throw away 13 years over one dinner? Grow up." I nearly laughed. 13 years ended the moment you invited another man to our anniversary. If that's what you call love, I'm glad it's over. Her face twisted, first with rage, then with something darker, fear. For the first time, I saw her uncertainty. She realized I wasn't going to grovel or fall apart. I was done playing the victim. As she stormed off, slamming the door behind her, I knew this was just the beginning. Emily was a master manipulator, and she wasn't about to let go easily. But neither was I. The war had started, and I was ready to fight on my terms. If you've never watched someone you love transform into a total stranger, let me tell you, it's like living in a horror movie where the monster wears your wife's face. By the third day after the dinner, Emily had fully switched gears. The fake tears were gone. Now she was on the attack, turning cold and calculating, sending messages not about love or regret, but about money, property, and threats. The first sign was a call from my bank. "Mr. Carter, did you authorize a transfer of $10,000 to a new account?" I felt my blood freeze. I hadn't. But Emily had. She'd been planning for weeks, maybe months. I raced home and ripped through every drawer and folder, hunting for evidence she'd been siphoning funds. My stomach twisted as I uncovered withdrawal slips. Secret credit cards, and even a set of legal forms she'd filled out but hadn't submitted yet. All in her tight, looping handwriting. But that was just the start. She started twisting the story for our friends and family. Suddenly, I was the villain, cold, distant, obsessed with work. Emily painted herself as the poor, neglected wife forced to find happiness elsewhere. She sent out texts, made calls, even posted cryptic messages on social media, her heartbreaking truth, and learning to love herself again. I saw the comments. I saw who liked her posts. People I'd trusted for years, now turning their backs or sending me awkward "thinking of you" texts. But I wasn't about to let her rewrite history. I gathered every scrap of evidence, the messages with Ryan, the secret accounts, the dinner receipt. I took photos of everything and sent them to Marcus, my lawyer. "Don't say a word to anyone," he warned. "Let her keep talking. The truth always catches up." Still, it was brutal. Every day felt like walking through fire. Emily moved out of the house, but not before making a scene in the driveway, throwing my clothes on the lawn, yelling at the neighbors that I'd ruined her life. Ryan, ever the tough guy, actually showed up once, thinking he'd scare me. He tried to swagger up the porch, but I met him halfway, eyes cold, voice even colder. "You want to play hero? Go ahead. Just know you're standing on my property, and I'm not in the mood." He didn't push it. Just gave Emily a look and backed off, mumbling something about crazy exes. Pathetic. That week, the legal battle exploded. Emily contested the divorce, demanded the house, half my savings, and even tried to claim she deserved alimony because I'd emotionally abandoned her. She was shameless, lying, twisting, inventing whatever stories she thought would work in court. But here's where things got interesting. Remember that extra phone I'd found? Turns out Emily and Ryan hadn't just mocked me in their messages, they'd gotten careless. Ryan bragged about his other options, called Emily just another bored housewife, and even joked about using her for money. Screenshots in hand, I felt a flicker of satisfaction. For all her schemes, Emily was just another pawn to a guy who didn't give a damn about her. The emotional whiplash was relentless. Some days I wanted to scream. Others, I felt hollow, drained. It was like my whole life had been a lie, and now, every truth was uglier than the last. I barely slept, barely ate. But every time I looked at those messages, the humiliation fueled a new resolve. I wouldn't let her destroy me. I wouldn't play the fool again. Instead, I doubled down, organized, focused, documenting everything, anticipating her next move. Marcus was right, let her show her true face. I was ready. No more tears, no more pleading. If Emily wanted war, she'd get it. She thought she could walk all over me. But Emily was about to find out just how dangerous a man can be when he's got nothing left to lose. You'd think after someone invites their affair partner to your anniversary dinner, their bag of tricks would be empty. Not Emily. She just switched tactics. The lies got bolder, the manipulation nastier, and the games more twisted. But she made one big mistake. She assumed I was still the same man who brought her roses and trusted every word out of her mouth. She didn't realize I'd finally woken up. The divorce hearings began. That was when Emily's performance really hit its stride. She showed up to court in a black dress, crocodile tears and all, leaning on her lawyer as if she were the victim of some tragic love story. Her opening statement was a masterpiece of fiction. "Your Honor, Brandon was never present. He made me feel invisible, unloved, so I sought comfort elsewhere." She delivered it with shaky hands, dabbing her eyes with a tissue for effect. Meanwhile, her friends sat in the back, shooting me dirty looks, nodding along like this was all so obvious. The court clerk barely glanced at me, just another villain in a sad marriage story. But my lawyer, Marcus, was a shark. He had receipts, screenshots, dates, times, everything lined up like bullets in a magazine. Emily tried to take everything. She wanted the house, the cars, even my late father's watch, a family heirloom I never thought would end up as a bargaining chip in a divorce. She claimed she'd contributed more emotionally, that I owed her for years of neglect. The audacity would have been laughable if it wasn't so infuriating. But here's where things turned. During the hearing, Marcus calmly slid across a folder to the judge. "With respect, Your Honor, these messages paint a very different picture." The judge flipped through pages of Emily's chats with Ryan, her laughing about me behind my back, her scheming to empty our joint account, her trash-talking me to her so-called friends. The tone in the courtroom shifted fast. Emily's crocodile tears dried up, replaced by a look of pure panic. For the first time, I watched her confidence crack. She shot me a glare, like it was my fault her secrets were out. But I wasn't gloating. I was tired. Tired of the lies, tired of playing her games. I just wanted my life back. Ryan, by the way, didn't even bother showing up. Apparently, real men don't stick around for the mess they help create. Emily was suddenly all alone at her little table, clutching a tissue and shaking, her performance ruined by her own words. But it wasn't over. Not even close. Emily, in classic fashion, retaliated. She started spreading rumors, told everyone I was abusive, cold, that I'd threatened her. She doctored old photos to make it look like I was angry or drunk, emailed my boss with wild stories, even called the police one night claiming I'd broken in to my own house. Every day, it felt like a new attack. But I kept my head down, stuck to the truth, and let Marcus handle the rest. He was ruthless, called out her lies in court, shut down every false accusation, and made sure the judge saw through the act. The court began to realize who Emily really was, a manipulator, a liar, and the real architect of our downfall. Through it all, I refused to sink to her level. No angry outbursts, no shouting matches. I learned to keep my voice calm and my actions deliberate. If she wanted a war, she could have one, but by my rules. And as the hearings dragged on, I started seeing glimmers of hope. Old friends reached out, apologizing for believing her stories. My boss called, told me he saw right through the lies. The cracks in her mask were starting to show, and people were finally noticing. Emily had set the stage for my downfall. But as the truth came out, it was her reputation that began to crumble. Emily underestimated me. For years, she'd been the puppeteer, yanking strings behind my back, spinning tales to friends, colleagues, and anyone who'd listen. But once the evidence started leaking, once the court saw who she really was, the tide began to turn, and fast. Word spread through our old circle. The group chats once filled with Emily's sob stories now buzzed with questions. Did you see what she actually wrote about Brandon? Is it true she drained their savings? Screenshots found their way to mutual friends, and suddenly, the ones who jumped to her defense grew awfully quiet. The more she tried to push her victim narrative, the more desperate, and obvious, she looked. It was almost satisfying to watch the same people who'd trashed me do a double take, rethinking every whispered rumor Emily had spread. Her facade was breaking, but she wasn't going down without a fight. I got texts from her late at night, ranging from venomous rants to pathetic pleas. "You ruined me, Brandon. Everyone hates me because of you," followed by, "Can we please just end this? I'm tired." But I didn't bite. Not anymore. I'd spent enough sleepless nights agonizing over what I could have done differently. Now, each day was about reclaiming my life, not fixing hers. One afternoon, I came home to find the locks changed. Emily, with her last ounce of power, tried to kick me out of my own house. But Marcus was a step ahead. He'd already filed an emergency motion, and the police escorted me inside to collect my things. Emily stood in the doorway, arms folded, looking for all the world like she was the true victim. "This is my home, Brandon," she hissed. Her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I ignored her, walking room to room, gathering what mattered: family photos, my father's watch, a few boxes of memories she hadn't managed to poison. Each trip out to the car, Emily hurled a new insult. Weak. Pathetic. No wonder I left. The words stung, but not the way she hoped. They just confirmed what I'd known all along: this wasn't love. It never really had been, not for her. The final straw? I found a note hidden under my pillow, scrawled in her handwriting, "You'll never find someone better than me." It should have hurt, but it made me laugh. For the first time in months, I realized I was free. The hold she'd had on me was broken. But Emily's spiral only got messier. She tried to reach Ryan, but word got out he'd ghosted her, blocked her number, disappeared from her social media, moved on to his next target. Turns out, her upgrade was just another liar, a player who didn't care about her once the thrill was gone. The karma was almost poetic. Emily, who'd orchestrated every betrayal, was left alone, her lies exposed, her lover vanished, her reputation in ruins. Even her parents called me, apologizing for ever doubting me. "We had no idea, Brandon," her mother whispered over the phone. "We thought she was just lost. We're so sorry." But the real victory wasn't just proving her wrong. It was rediscovering myself. I started to rebuild, piece by piece. I hit the gym, reconnected with old friends, took up new hobbies. The freedom tasted sharp and sweet, like the first breath after a storm. For the first time, I could look in the mirror and not see a fool, but a survivor. Emily still tried to claw her way back into my life with threats, tears, and empty promises. But I'd seen the truth, felt the knife in my back, and survived. Her power was gone. She was just another chapter, one I was finally ready to close. The war was nearly over. All that was left was to walk away and never look back. With Emily's lies crumbling and her upgrade nowhere to be found, the whole tone of the divorce shifted. Suddenly, her lawyers started sending settlement offers, pathetic lowballs, last-ditch attempts to grab what she could before the court decisions landed. I let Marcus handle the paperwork and focused on picking up the pieces of my own life, determined not to let Emily steal another second of my sanity. But she wasn't finished. Emily's desperation grew ugly. I started getting anonymous calls at work, false reports, wild accusations meant to mess with my reputation. One morning, someone keyed my car and left a note tucked under the windshield, "Hope it was worth it." Real mature. I kept the note, handed it to Marcus, and installed a camera on my driveway. Emily must have realized she'd crossed a line, because she finally stopped the petty harassment. The final hearing was brutal but quick. Emily's stories didn't hold up, not with evidence stacked against her like a wall. The judge saw through her, called her conduct manipulative and deceptive, using legal language that stung sharper than any insult. She tried one last time to cry in court, but there were no tears left to fake. The settlement was clear: I kept the house, the savings, and my father's watch. Emily got what she came with, and nothing more. She looked at me after the decision, eyes burning with a fury I hadn't seen before. It was the look of someone who'd lost control for the first time in her life. "You ruined me," she spat as we left the courtroom. I shrugged. "You did that all by yourself, Emily." The truth hurt her more than any argument ever could. But even with the legal war over, the emotional cleanup took time. Some nights, I still woke up haunted by memories, by that moment at the restaurant, by the humiliation and betrayal. But as the days passed, those memories faded, replaced by better ones. The silence at home wasn't lonely anymore, it was peaceful. I filled it with music, laughter, friends I hadn't seen in years. For the first time since the storm hit, I could breathe. Emily, on the other hand, tried to salvage her shattered world. She sent messages, first angry, then apologetic, then pleading. "Can we at least talk? Can't we just move past this?" I ignored every one. I wasn't interested in repairing what never should have broken in the first place. One night, months after the final court date, I ran into Ryan by accident at a bar downtown. He recognized me, gave a sheepish nod, and tried to make small talk. "Hey, man. No hard feelings, right?" I just looked at him, letting the silence speak for itself. The old me might have punched him, or at least demanded an apology. But standing there, watching him squirm, I realized he was nothing, a blip in a story that wasn't worth another second of my energy. "Don't worry, Ryan. "I'm done with both of you," I said, turning away before he could answer. That was the moment I knew I'd won, not the court battle, not the arguments, but the real fight. I'd let go of the bitterness, the hate, the need for revenge. Emily was nothing more than a closed chapter, a warning sign for the future, not a chain holding me back. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through my window and realized I was free. No more lies. No more battles. Just the promise of something better. But there was still one last thing I needed to do, to forgive myself for ever letting someone like Emily take so much of me. That, I learned, is the only way to truly move forward. When the dust finally settled, I found myself staring at an empty house and a future wide open in front of me. It was strange at first, coming home to quiet instead of chaos, knowing there were no more mind games waiting in the next room. Some evenings, I'd catch myself glancing at my phone, half expecting another one of Emily's venomous messages, but the notifications had finally stopped. The silence became something I cherished, a reminder that the war was over. I started rebuilding my routines. Early mornings at the gym turned from therapy into pure habit. I threw myself into work with a focus I hadn't felt in years, and for the first time, I actually wanted to go out with friends instead of making excuses to stay home. Old friends came back around once they realized the truth about Emily. There were awkward apologies, sure, but I welcomed them. It was better than being alone with my thoughts. Every day, I discovered more about who I'd been before Emily twisted my world. I took up old hobbies, guitar, hiking, cooking real meals that didn't involve frozen pizza and stress. I learned to laugh again. There was something almost healing about sitting on my back porch, guitar in hand, letting the world slow down. But the transformation wasn't all instant or easy. Some nights, the doubt still crept in, echoes of Emily's words rattling around my head, trying to convince me I was to blame for it all. That I was boring, too trusting, not enough. But I remembered the evidence, the lies, the casual cruelty she'd shown. No matter how many times I replayed the story, I always landed on the same truth: I wasn't the problem. I was the guy who refused to let her break me. Oddly enough, it was one of Emily's old friends, Lisa, who pushed me toward real closure. She showed up on my doorstep one rainy afternoon with a bottle of bourbon and an apology. "I should have seen what she was doing to you," she said, her voice thick with guilt. "You deserve better." We talked for hours. It wasn't romantic, just two people sifting through the wreckage Emily had left behind. Lisa told me stories about Emily's past, the patterns, the red flags. It was hard to hear, but also weirdly comforting. It wasn't just me. Emily had always been like this, always searching for a new game, a new victim. It helped me let go of the last traces of self-blame. With each passing week, my life felt more like mine. The divorce was done, the legal mess cleaned up, and even the last of Emily's drama faded to static. I looked around at the house and decided it was time for change. I donated everything that reminded me of her: clothes, old gifts, even the wedding photos that used to hang in the hallway. My place got lighter. Brighter. It finally felt like home. Then, out of nowhere, an opportunity came along. My boss offered me a transfer, same company, new city. It felt like fate. A fresh start, somewhere Emily's shadow would never reach. I accepted immediately. Packed up what little I wanted to keep, and hit the road with nothing but excitement for what lay ahead. Driving out of town, windows down and the radio blasting, I felt a weight lift from my chest. The pain and betrayal were real, but they weren't going to define me. I was stronger now, tougher, wiser, impossible to fool. Looking in the rearview mirror, I didn't see Emily or Ryan, or even the guy who'd sat stunned at that anniversary dinner. I saw a survivor. A man who'd taken hell and turned it into freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking back. I was finally, completely free. If you've made it this far, maybe you're wondering how a story like mine actually ends. Truth is, real life doesn't have a neat finish line. There's no grand speech, no big apology, no perfectly tied-up revenge. Sometimes you just walk away, battered but alive, and that has to be enough. I settled into my new city like someone waking up after a long nightmare. Every street was unfamiliar, every face new. It felt like a second chance, and for once, I wasn't dragging a ball and chain behind me. My first week, I found a hole-in-the-wall bar where nobody knew my name. I made small talk, learned the bartender's story, listened to people laugh without wondering what secrets they were hiding. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to explain myself or watch my back. The past crept up sometimes, sure. I'd see couples out together, hear someone mention anniversaries or weddings, and my chest would tighten for a second. But the bitterness didn't stick. Instead, I let it pass, like a bruise fading into memory. I stopped blaming myself for everything Emily did, and I stopped letting her define what I believed about love, loyalty, or my own worth. Funny thing about pain, it can be a teacher if you let it. I learned that people who lie, manipulate, and use you don't get to keep you in their story forever. I learned the hard way that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, and you sure as hell can't change a person who thrives on chaos. I also learned just how much strength lives inside you when everything you thought you needed is ripped away. Lisa and I kept in touch. We met for coffee sometimes, shared stories about the mess we'd survived. She'd been burned by Emily too, different way, same pattern. We laughed about things that used to hurt. It's strange how betrayal can build unlikely friendships. One night, months after the move, I sat alone on my new balcony with a cold drink and the city lights stretching out before me. For the first time, I asked myself what I'd tell someone stuck in the hell I'd just escaped. The answer was simple: don't ignore your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't let anyone, no matter how sweet, smart, or beautiful, convince you that you're the problem just because they want to cover their own lies. And if betrayal finds you, don't waste your strength begging for an apology. Take your dignity and run. Life's too short to let a snake poison your future. Looking back, I realized I owed Emily nothing, not a second chance, not another tear, not a single day of regret. She played her games, burned her bridges, and in the end, wound up alone with her stories. I, on the other hand, walked away with scars, sure, but also with freedom, a future, and a self-respect that couldn't be bought or broken. Eventually, the pain dulled. My laughter came back, fuller and real. I met new people, opened myself up, and learned that not everyone out there is looking to use or hurt you. I started to trust again, not blindly, not foolishly, but bravely. The story of Emily is over. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not broken. I'm just a man who survived hell, learned who I am, and now, finally, gets to write his own story. So, if you're reading this and stuck in your own storm, hear me out: your life doesn't end with betrayal. Sometimes, it finally begins.